Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining in. We will be commencing very shortly. We're just waiting for a couple more attendees to join in. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for patiently waiting with us. We will now be beginning the webinar. So thank you all so much for taking the time out to join the webinar today. And we hope that everybody here can take at least something significant away from this experience today. Symbiosis Centre for Emotional Wellbeing was established in 2018 to look after the mental health needs of the entire Symbiosis International University family. We are a huge institute with over 20,000 students, numerous faculty members, staff, and we are also located in multiple places in India, not just Pune. We host a lot of national students, a lot of international students come in as well. And Symbiosis has a golden legacy of 51 years. So we recently just celebrated our golden jubilee. And hence we thought, today to bring to you and 12 standard students to expand beyond our existing reach and go into the community and share a couple of helpful webinars with all of you. So we are hosting Make My Career series, which will be a bunch of webinars on how to make career decisions, what troubles 12 standard students face with exam anxiety, the uncertainty around board results, etc. So we hope that you find this helpful today. Let me quickly introduce our speakers. So we have Dr. Girija Mahale. She is a psychiatrist by profession and she heads the Symbiosis Centre for Emotional Wellbeing. She has made sure that SCEW thrives in the past 3 years of its functionality, and she has been an incredible leader. I myself am Yoshita Thadani, and I am a psychological counselor here at SCEW itself. We have a couple of our other team members who've also joined in and will be helping us with the webinar today. So some of you in our audience might have already completed your board examinations, particularly the HSC students, whereas some of the ICSE, CBSE students are yet to begin your board examinations. So we have curated this webinar, keeping both of you audiences in mind. The first half will be around understanding how to battle the anxiety around board examinations. And the second half of the webinar will introduce you to how you can make a career decision. What are some of the basic things to keep in mind that will help you guide this very important choice that you need to make. We won't be speaking about different careers in this particular webinar, but since it is a series, we will be taking that up in the future. So please do stick around for our future webinars as well. Without further ado, I would like to ask Dr. Girija the first question. So Dr. Girija, can you help us understand what is stress and how examination stress looks like?
Sure, Yoshita, thanks. And first of all, welcome to all the young adults, beautiful young minds who have joined us here on a Sunday afternoon. I'm particularly grateful to all the students who are yet to appear for the exams, and also to the students who have just finished with the exams. Despite finishing with your exams, you have made time to join us today for this webinar, just showing that you have so much interest in the career choice that you want to make, and you want to make sure that you're making an informed decision with your careers. So coming to Yoshita's question, stress. किसको stress नहीं है भाई? I think stress is an integral part of life. Stress is nothing but tension, pressure, a demand that is placed on ourselves, either from our environment or internally from within our own self. I mean, when it comes to students, think of what are your lessons. And it's about how I look, the demand that is on myself about wanting to fit in with people. Just a minute, I'm getting a call from Kiran ma'am, who is also a second panelist. Just going to pause here. Hello. Hi, Kiran. Kiran, I'm good. We've actually begun the this panel. Yoshita, so okay, Dr. Kiran is also joining. I'm so sorry for the interruption, but we do have another very senior professional who is also going to be a panelist here, Dr. Kiran Dikshit, who is a senior clinical psychologist currently practicing in the US, who will be joining us shortly. So because of the time zones, differing time zones, I think there was a slight misunderstanding, but she's joining us soon. Right. So going back to stress. So, we have stress of different kinds, stress of how we look, stress of making friends, stress of, day-to-day things like even getting up on time, making sure we are ready for our school, colleges, etc. So stress is absolutely a demand that is placed on ourselves, and we use our resources to mitigate that stress. Now, look, young adults are very, very adaptable. They're very resilient, and therefore, kuch bhi jugaad karke, we meet with stress, isn't it? We do find our way out through our stress, and that's what is when we are able to meet that demand. That stress is what we are able to cope with, and that is called as eustress. So eustress is that adequate level of stress that we can cope with, and which is actually helpful and motivates us to do better. So I would say that some amount of stress before exams is actually good. It actually motivates you to study, it motivates you to prepare for your exams and to do well, not just to sit for your exams, but to actually perform at your best ability. And that's what stress helps us to do. But when it gets out of hand is when we call it as distress. Okay. So I will talk a little bit about how to identify whether that stress is adequate for me or whether it is distress that I'm experiencing now. And this is very important for you students to know, to be able to understand whether I'm coping with stress adequately or no. So firstly, whether you're sleeping well. Sleep is a very, very important aspect of our life, and it is actually essential. Our hamara jo brain hai na, our brain functions optimally when we have adequately allowed it to rest. And that rest, when does our brain get to rest? When we are sleeping. So if you're getting good sleep, if your appetite has not changed drastically during, in the exam period. So now your board exams are, especially for ICSE, CBSE, they're about a month later, right? Around April end. So even 10-15 days left for your exams. So if your appetite has not drastically changed, if you're still able to sort of focus, concentrate on your studies, when you're scheduling your timetables and you're able to focus and study, some days will be there when you'll find it hard to completely stick to your schedules or timetables. But even if you're achieving say 70 to 75% of what you have put down on your timetable, then I would say that you're coping well. You're able to you're not constantly preoccupied with exams. What am I going to do? How am I going to fare? Am I going to score well in my exams? Am I going to meet with my parents expectations? If you're not constantly preoccupied and you're able to distance away from it and stay relaxed and think about other things as well of your life, then I would say that you're coping adequately and that you're facing that it's you stress that you're experiencing. But if your sleep is getting hampered, if your appetite is getting really disturbed, if you're having too much mood swings, like you're getting irritable, snappy over small, small things, and that's a consistent pattern. Look, everyone exam ke pehle thoda chidchidapan hona, gussa aana is very, very natural. But if it's getting too much in the sense that it is coming in the way of you focusing in your studies, it is not allowing you to concentrate, और ऐसे लग रहा है कि दिमाग में कुछ जा ही नहीं रहा है किताब just the page is in front of me and I'm just feeling so overwhelmed that I really can't study, then I'm possibly experiencing distress. Now Yoshita, you also asked me exam stress, right? So of course the demand that exams put on a student and all these uncertainties about exam, will I perform well, will I really be able to score what I've decided for myself, what will my parents think about me, will I accomplish the goals that I've set for myself, will I be able to remember? I think the biggest fear I also remember when I was giving my boards is पढ़ाई तो बहुत सबको ही करता है, everybody studies for their boards, they revise their portion, but will I be able to reproduce in that exam scenario where I do not have access to my books, where I'm in a in this year at least the exams are going to be conducted in your own respective schools, but when before this pandemic the boards would be conducted in different school settings, you would get a different center to appear for your exams. So this whole new setting would create that uncertainty whether I will be able to really perform to my best ability, and that creates a lot of stress. Yoshita. Hi Kiran.
Absolutely, ma'am. I think you explained that really well. And it's very important that students are able to identify when stress is getting out of hand, when it's disrupting other parts of their life, because end of the day, if you're stressed out, you will not be able to study optimally. And right now, board exam time is when you need to study optimally. So that was really helpful, ma'am. And welcome, Kiran, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Sorry, good evening. It's my morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you for joining us super early in the morning. Yes, so we were just discussing a little about what stress looks like, what examination stress particularly looks like. And therefore, I would now like to ask the next question to our panelists, and that is, what leads students to feel so pressurized during examinations, during board examinations particularly? So, yes.
All right. So I guess with boards, the concept of 10th and 12th in Indian society is so much hyped. I guess there is a lot of weightage. You'll hear from friends, अभी आपकी बेटी अभी 10वीं में है, हाँ बहुत important साल है, everything, the whole family revolves around these boards. everything that the child was doing, child was giving exams in 8th, 9th, but suddenly 10th mein kuch alag hi scene ho jata hai ghar pe, where now you stop going for vacations. You tell the child now it's abhi ye saal bahut important hai, is pe sab kuch nirbhar hai. So this message that the child is getting through the ear, right from teachers, right from their friends, right from families, relatives, and the parents, that everything now, as if if I don't perform in my boards, everything is my career is at stake, sort of a picture. But to tell you honestly, who tell me asks you, who now I'm 44, and who in the world asks me my 10th standard marks or my 12th standard marks? It is just a performance, it is just a practice test. It's a practice test to prepare you, and it's a test of your really how much you're able to reproduce whatever you've learned through the year. Boards is nothing but that. And believe me, it is not like a do or die situation at all, because there are so many career choices available that even see, even if you gain 95, it doesn't make you a hero, and even if you gain 50, it doesn't make you a zero. First and foremost, you remember that marks are not an indicator of of who you are as a person, nor does it actually speak about your talent at all. It is on that particular day, what were you able to reproduce, and what were you able to, how were you able to perform to those specific questions only that were asked in your boards. Okay. So please students, bear this in mind, that uh, this is, yes, it is an important exam in a sense that yes, after this uh, you are going to choose a specific stream, you are going to choose a specific career choice, uh, but at the end of the day, and probably you're also thinking about which colleges you want to enter, and therefore you're trying to score high marks so that you get into a certain prestigious college, you get admitted into it. But believe me, with the national education policy also now coming in, there are much wider choices, and it's you have to try your best, you have to put in your best, and boards just allows you to get prepared for the future, in the sense that it tells you that yes, now is the time, these are the crucial years where you need to focus, be committed, persevere, because education is power. Remember this: education, anybody can snatch away your money, anybody can steal away your gadgets, but nobody can steal away your knowledge, and nobody can steal away your education qualifications, right? So therefore education is very important, and that students should remember more than the boards. Think of it as this is a time when I need to really focus, persevere, commit, because that's going to be my pathway to success in whichever field I choose to take up. When I'm working hard, when I'm persevering, when I'm gaining knowledge, when I'm reading extensively, when I'm focusing, then I am actually paving way and building those blocks to prepare me for the future world. So along with education, it's also important to focus on your other skills that are also going to help you in your career forward. I hope I've answered your question.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. I mean, you also covered, the whole implication behind board exams, how it's looked at as this terrifying thing that we have to overcome. But end of the day, as you said, the knowledge matters, and your actions will be able to prove your worth and your skills at the end of the day, not just a piece of paper, which is your result.
Yeah.
So my next question will be for Dr. Kiran. Ma'am, if you could help us understand, what is it that students can do to cope with the examination stress that they are currently experiencing?
So good morning again. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So I wanted to start by sharing a little bit of a story so that we can put things in perspective. And the beauty is that as we age, we have perspective, right? And having the right perspective is what is important. So my story is that I started off, of course, growing up in India, and I grew up in Hyderabad, and I moved to the US for well, my parents got the green card, and then they said, why don't we go for a visit to see what India is like, I mean, for what the US is like, and whether we can really manage there. And we came a summer trip right after school. I would just finish my 9th, so I was dreading the 10th and all that was coming. And so it was a good time to go because अभी तो 9th खत्म हो गया, exams खत्म हुए, चलो जाकर देखते हैं वहाँ कैसा है. So we come here and we come to visit my Masi, and the plan is changed to say, तुम यहीं रह जाओ, क्योंकि यहाँ के जो गाइडेंस काउंसलर्स वगैरह हैं वो कह रहे हैं कि भाई ये तो अभी 12th कर सकती है इधर, इसके जो सब्जेक्ट्स लिए हैं, इसके जो ग्रेड्स हैं, अगर ट्रांसफर किया. So I don't know if it was the 80s and it was just a shit show everywhere, but it was like, okay, let's go, and you just live here now with this Masi that you don't know, and we will just go back and देखो कितना तुम्हारा फायदा हो रहा है. You don't have to do the 10th, the boards, horrible, and you will be spared so much trauma by not having to do all of this. And the 12th in America is so easy, it's brilliant, go do it, with no thought to, of course, your mental health. The fact that I'm staying in a strange new culture with new people that I don't even know. I've never met my Masi and her family. And I'm all of a sudden in this part of the world which is ridiculously cold, where nobody speaks the language as I do, and I'm stuck. And I'm going to this, I'm 15 years old. I just turned 15, and I'm here in the US in a, not even in a city, in Rochester, New York. It's freezing cold. And there I am. So ये जो हमारे ख्याल होते हैं, the way we think is what affects how we experience feelings and how that translates to behavior, right? So of course, as a young person panicking and realizing, oh dear God, what does this mean now? And I'm stuck here. There's nobody I know. I didn't say bye to any of my friends. So, making sure that as you are coping with uncertainty right now, dealing with whatever's going on for you, the reality is that there is this role of resilience, right? That we never talk about, that is going to help you through this. That it's not going to be forever. It's going to be, something that's going to pass, because all your feelings, whether they're anxiety, their fear, they come and they go, they don't stay. And so it's just sticking through that period of discomfort, right? When you are panicking, when you are feeling maybe hopeless, and how do you stick through it? And to go back to my story a little bit, because I'm going in and out, is look at where I am, right? Because of course, I'm old now and I have the perspective, is that my life wasn't messed up. It did feel like it was messed up at that time, because when I finished the 10th, nobody prepared, or the 12th in the US, nobody prepared me, like even simple things, right? Of course, we didn't have any computers. I couldn't get on the internet. There was nothing. It was like writing letters, snail mail. I don't even know if you people know that, the kids on the Zoom call. Nobody told me there was a thing called the SAT. Nobody. Like, you have to take this exam. They were like, oh, itna jump liya hai, you just understand the system and, figure it out and don't worry about the future. So nobody worried about my future. And they were like, oh, so now what are you going to do? Because I graduated. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't know the system. And they said, well, maybe you can go to a community college. I said, okay, what is this community college business? And they said, it's for 2 years and you can just go and take courses. So abhi to na ghar ka na ghat ka ho gaya na. So it's like neither here nor there. I didn't want to go to a community college. I didn't even know what I wanted to study, because I was prepared for the Indian system. And then, my father was like, oh, let's just come back. I don't understand what you're supposed to do, because nobody is guiding me. And so again, I go back, and what college is going to accept me with no 10th, no 11th, no marks in India? Right? And then my dad was in Bombay at that time. He's like, come back and, we'll just figure out a college for you here. And so there's like only a few courses you can take. Only you can go back to college, but you can never do science, because apparently I didn't have anything science. And then I could not do commerce because I didn't have enough math. Like, the doors were shut for me. And so then I started off at Sophia College, And, I went there for 3 years. I had barely turned 18 and that was over. So my parents had this brilliant idea, of course, to get me married, because what am I doing in life? And that's when I had to wake up and smell the coffee, because it's like, I need to own some of this, right? All right, fine, these things are happening to me, but at some point I have to figure out what I want to do. And so then that was scary enough to realize that, because my friends were 21 and 22, because they finished college normally. And so then it was, panic time to apply to graduate school in the US, because if I stayed in India, it would be over. What felt like it was going to be over. I'm sure that feeling resonates with some of you. And then I had to apply to any college that would take me and give me a full ride, because I couldn't depend on my parents, right? They could yank me back saying, "Ye kya kar rahe ho tum? You're studying what?" At first, I thought I was studying psychology, and I stood in the wrong line when you sign up for your TY. And the line was for psychology. So these are how choices sometimes get made. And I looked at the other line, it was so freaking hot. I'm like, I'm not standing in that other line. I'll just sign up for this. Like, what has life offered me anyway? And so that's the thinking, right? You're young, your brain's not developed, and you're in this space of panic, and you're in this space of just feeling overwhelmed. And sometimes, I don't think we can curse on this. But anyway, you're like, screw it. I don't want to, who cares? So you go from these emotions to feeling like you want to be in charge of everything, to feeling like, who cares, move on. And at the end of the day, here I am. I'm fairly successful and have a really good life. And if I look back and think about, what was I thinking about, or what is it that I wanted, like at the core? Because we all say, oh, just be happy, right? That's what at least my parents said. Bas khush raho beta, then we'll see what happens, right? Just, and then there's God thrown in, right? Bhagwan par bharosa karo. And, so you get all these messages from those around you that love you clearly and care about you. But the messages are kind of messed up, right? Because they may not resonate with you. And sometimes you may go to the Bhagwan route or go to so many routes, and it may not lead anywhere. And it's okay. That's the bottom line, is that it's okay. You're going to be okay. It may not feel like it right now, but you just have to navigate that discomfort until that feeling passes, because your brain is wired such that it will pass. So I always tell my clients here, especially the teens and adults, that you don't really have to be stuck with that feeling of being overwhelmed, being scared, being anxious. It's like standing on the beach, right? And the waves, they come and they go. And the waves always go. They don't come. So it's managing that discomfort, giving yourself permission to be okay, and realizing that I'm going to let this anxious feeling or this feeling of fear just be here with me for some time. And then it goes away, and then you're okay. So did I even answer this question? I just randomly ranted off.
No, you definitely did. I mean, it's so great to hear your experience, because I think a lot of students will resonate with exactly that, because that's the kind of situation they are in right now, about board exams, how to make, their next career choice, what to do after, boards. So I hope the students here found your story helpful, and the fact that you are booming in the field that you are pursuing today. I know you said that it happened by chance that you chose it, but you're right, things do work out for the best, and we're glad that you're in the field of mental health because of that by chance decision.
I know. And I think the other thing I want to use as a takeaway just for a minute is that, remember that in the 80s, that's the period I'm talking about, nobody even knew that there was a field like psychology, right? And when you get a graduate degree in psychology, or even an undergraduate degree in psychology, it was like, what is that? Of course, you're prepped to be just married. Like, there's no other purpose in life. And so the other aspect was, owning that, realize that you can create purpose, right? You can, what are the chances without any internet to write to all these schools. Like I'm willing to go to Minnesota, or I'm going to go to like, I don't care where I went, right? South Dakota. I applied to like so many just random places because I needed a full ride. And to do that without any internet, without, and waiting for this big package to come, and then to make a phone call was so expensive. And so there are all these what seem like significant obstacles, what are significant barriers. And I'm sure there is nothing different, for what you kids are going through right now. And the reality is that, it's breaking it down perhaps when the anxiety seeps in into little parts, and to say what is in my control. And the whole idea of an internal locus of control, right? Realizing that there are some things that are within my capacity. So maybe like Dr. Girija was saying earlier, you can, manage the sleep schedule to say, you know what, this is in my control. I can't control, the pandemic and all the uncertainty and everything that's going on, but I can control how I manage myself. So coming back to that area of internal locus of control, because the anxiety is going to come and go. It's just how I keep managing myself in a way that's consistent. Because the important thing is the message to the brain, right? All of this is connected to how you're thinking. And sometimes just continuing to repeat things and give messages to the brain that say, I can do this. The brain accepts those messages. But if you keep feeding your brain shit, it's going to accept shit, right? So, making sure that you're constantly messaging right, even if you don't believe it, just keep saying it. And so some of these techniques really come in handy when you're supremely anxious, afraid, worried, whatever it is that's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And whilst we're talking about exam anxiety, parents also play a huge role here, right, in mitigating the stress that their children are facing. So what would you like to tell the parents here? How could they support their children a little better during this challenging period?
Oh, I have lots to say to parents. Get on board, people. It's primarily your anxiety that's going to be transferred to your children. So unless you manage your own anxiety, nothing's going to change. If you believe your kid is a hot mess, the more anxious you are, your kid is going to be 4 times as anxious. So really stepping in and owning what this means for you. Because for so many parents, there is a tendency to live vicariously through your children. So maybe you did really brilliantly well, or maybe you didn't do brilliantly well, or there's an expectation from the family. It's so many things that are going on for you. So as much as kids need to own their stuff, the parents really need to own their stuff and focus on why are you in this space? What is really making you anxious? What is really worrying you about your child? And then how you approach it, right? Because it's completely natural for us as parents to also be anxious and worried and to hear bits and pieces from everywhere. And I am totally guilty of that because I, as a parent, mera bacha is 23 years old, he's graduated school and all that. And then there he was, right, applying. And I would go to some of these parent-teacher meetings in his school, and then I would hear things like, oh, my son is volunteering at this place, and he's doing this independent study, and it's so great and all that. And then हमको आकर बताएंगे कि भाई, do you know ये ऐसे है? And of course, I would want to come and share that with my child. कि देखो ऐसे भी हो सकता है. Did you think about it? All it does is add to that anxiety when you think you're trying to be helpful and you're engaging with your child. And the reality is that it's just like, out of the blue, bacha kahan hai pata bhi nahi, he's right there. But emotionally, I don't know where he is. But my need is, ki bhai dekho, this guy is doing this. And, maybe we can think of something like this. And so my intention is benign and wants to be helpful. But just to come and, share things because I just learned about it, it's really not helpful. My kid is looking at me like, Mom, I'm in the middle of this. Why are you telling me this right now? I'm studying for this test. I'm writing this paper. Why are you telling me this? And I'm like, oh, because I just heard about it. I just came back from your parent-teacher conference and this is what people were saying. And he's like, okay, but how is this helpful to me right now? I need to finish and focus on this paper. Now you've told me this. And I'm like, oh, does she want me to do that? Does she not want me to do that? Kya ho raha hai yahan? And I'm like, oh, okay. So here is me, therapist and all that. And as a parent, it's not managing my own self. What do I need to do? What is my, ambition? What's my dream for my child? What do I think my child is capable of? And how do I manage that? And how do I breathe and just slow things down and remain in a place of inquiry? Sawal pucho कि भाई, what is going on for you? तुम्हें क्या चाहिए? How can I be helpful? Let your child come to you, and let your child be the one to come and say to you कि भाई ये चाहिए, or I'm just really stressed out, or maybe I need to do this, this, and this, and then take time to just listen. Sometimes it's just listening and saying, huh, okay, even if it's like something weird, right? Because our kids, their brains are not developed, they'll say things. And it's okay to not react and say, what are you saying now? Ye kyun kar rahe ho? Aisa kyun soch rahe ho? Don't say that. Just listen and sometimes give a like monosyllabic response, like a acha, okay, theek hai. Just say that and allow the moment to pass instead of engaging either in what you think is problem solving or some, what you think is completely against what you are thinking for your child. Don't react is all I'm saying, and hold yourself back. You can give that same feedback, but in a form of a feedback rather than a reaction. Because so many times these small interactions, what you think is just हम बात कर रहे हैं, turn into these conflicts. So when did from your child saying, which is telling you this, become like this big drama, right? And so the important thing is to just step back and be in a place of, as much as I tell the kids to remain in a place of inquiry, it's the same thing for the parents to just say, अच्छा तो ये ऐसा बोल रहे हो तुम, or let me make sure that I'm understanding this correctly and repeating some of the things that are being said. So, for parents, it's just about checking in with yourself. What are you wanting? How much this is for you versus what's good for your child? Are you listening to your child? Are you thinking about what your child is saying? Are you remain in this place where you're open to what child will tell you? Because otherwise kids will hold back and give you what you need to hear. Because kids know why you're doing this, why you're saying things, and they'll just tell you what you want to hear. And then you cannot be in a place to say, "Bhai, ye sach nahi bolta. He's, I've found these things out." Why did you find that out? Why is your child not feeling safe and comfortable to trust you? So doing some reflecting about what the 10th means for you, what the 12th means for you, what are the messages from your own family you received, while you were a child, and making sure that you're not, transferring all those things onto your kid and adding to the stress which you don't intend. And because then we end up saying that as parents, like, oh my God, my intention was not to stress you out more. ये मेरा कहने का सवाल नहीं था, ये नहीं था, वो नहीं था. And then you end up doing things that perhaps you regret, right? And the whole thing is to avoid that. And so the same things that we say to our kids, make sure you're sleeping, make sure that you're engaging in the conversation, maybe when you've eaten. Simple things like that. Ki bhai, bhook lagi hai, now I have to talk about this, but now I'm getting irritated, I'm impatient. So just checking in with yourself all the time. What do I need to do so that I can support my child? And then just being in that place of being very mindful and thoughtful.
Just if I may add, wonderfully explained, Kiran. I think very, very nicely explained. Just to kind of be even empathic to the parents, because now even I'm a mother of a girl who's just entered her 10th. And what I see is that, there is also this huge pressure on parents, because nowadays both parents are working, they're staying in a nuclear family, long working hours, hectic schedules for the parents itself, and less time for all that adds to a lot of pressure. So when you have little time to connect with the child, you want to kind of emphasize to them the importance of education. And so you get into that lecture mode unknowingly. And which happens, even if I'm a mental health professional, I'm confessing here that it's easy to sort of preach and tell parents that, don't get into that reactionary mode. But we are so attuned to that because of all the pressures that are there around us, that society has also created. And with this all with the whole technological advances and globalization, I think we are living in a very different era to the era that we went through. So there is, even children for that matter, the access to gadgets over the last 2 years has increased so much that there is so much distraction around them that parents fear that when they're not around, that, students should not lose focus, the child should not lose focus on their studies and get distracted. So one suggestion to students is, yes, be mindful that, while gadgets, technology is great and it gives you great source of information, at least before exams, make sure that you are keeping your gadgets away, make sure that your remotes are away, because you may start off saying in your schedule that I'll, devote 30 minutes, say, to, chatting on WhatsApp or watching a Netflix series. But believe me, that 30 minutes never remains to 30 minutes, because so much, it is so pleasure seeking and it is rewarding being on social media, that you will not even realize how many hours you've lost on that. And remember particularly that before you're going to bed, especially switch off your gadgets at least an hour before going to bed, because all that blue light on your gadgets actually stimulates your brain and prevents it from shutting down or winding down just before bedtime. So these small suggestions I would definitely like to give our students.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think they were really brilliant suggestions, both for students and for parents. It's good for both parties to be equally empathetic towards each other and understand that everyone's context is very different, where parents and how they grew up, their context was different. Now the current generation context is completely different, but all it takes is a little bit of empathy, little bit of patience and support, end of the day. So with that, I'd like to move on to my next question. This is for you, Dr. Girija. So after board examinations, there are a lot of dilemmas that students experience. So maybe could you share with us what certain dilemmas that most of the students experience after their board examination and what they can do about it?
Correct. Okay, so again, relating to my own experience, dilemmas can be of varied kinds. First and foremost, it can be to do with the core career choice itself. Like, what is the stream that I want to get into? Like in India, we have these three streams: arts, commerce, and science. The first dilemma is, especially for students who do not have clarity about what they want to do ahead. And it's also sometimes, I may have a hobby, but I'm good. I may have a hobby of dancing or singing, but I'm equally good in science and maths. Then should I take arts or science? Is a dilemma that many students I've heard also during my last couple of years at Symbiosis tell me that, I was very good in dancing and music, but my parents, and because I was so good in my academics, that because science is somewhat thought of as a field which gives more certainty, which gives you more direction, and where there is an assured sort of an employability at the end of it. So it's thought of as a safer option to take. Many parents will tell their kids, even when they have choice at 9th and 10th, you can always decide to get to arts if you feel like it, but 9th, 10th mein science zarur lena. Please take science in your 9th and 10th. Don't take the risk of dropping science so early. So science is always looked at as a safer option. So that dilemma is always there in the kids. Secondly, which college to take? In India, again, there are so many colleges and so many universities, and nowadays most schools are also offering. There are junior colleges, and then there are many other options of colleges as well. So whether firstly you want to study in India, whether you want to go abroad, looking at the challenges in India, many students are nowadays inclined to think that going abroad is possibly an easier way out of this system, and establishing a career there is a easier way. So that's a dilemma that students face. And again, whether they would want to really stay in their hometown and first maybe choose a college which is closer to their house, versus moving out of home and moving to a different city, town, country, is another dilemma that students can face. So it can be in terms of stream, it can be in terms of the college, and it also can be in terms of the place that they want to get to, which can be a dilemma for them.
Absolutely. And all these dilemmas that they experience, there are certain factors that they have to consider to make these choices, right? Which career, which college, whether to stay here, whether to go abroad. So what are some of these factors that students usually consider when making these decisions?
Yes. So first of all, each student knows sort of where they are. I mean, our academic system is such that everything is evaluated in terms of marks, right? So every student sort of gauges for himself or herself where they are on that academic parameter. And based on that, they have a sense of where they're likely to get admission. So their own academic performance, in a way, sort of sets the tone for what career choices they will be allowed to make, because some careers do require or demand a higher cutoff percentage. And therefore, if you're clearly not somewhere closer to that bracket, then that choice automatically drops out for you. So for example, if you want to get into medicine, then you have to appear for NEET and you have to get a particular score to be able to get into a government college, or private colleges are very expensive. So second factor that comes into play is your monetary. Uh, how much are you able to finance? How much are your parents able to afford in terms of your college fees? Uh, Third is the whole glamour associated with a profession, or the prestige that a particular profession can give you. So in my time, I clearly knew that, in my family there were no doctors. So there was clearly this internal expectation that, I should become a doctor because there's no doctor in my family. And of course, my parents, my mother especially, wished that her daughter should be, because my older sister, she wanted to get into medicine, but she didn't get good. I mean, I wouldn't say good marks. She actually got good marks, but not the marks that were required to get into medicine at that particular time. So it all came on the younger sister that, now she has not been able to go. So so parental expectations, along with how much it can afford, you can afford the college fees, and that will also determine the choices that you make in terms of colleges. So in India, again, there is a huge disparity between government colleges versus private sector, where government colleges, the fees are pretty affordable, whereas when it comes to private colleges, they do charge quite hefty fees. Uh, so peer pressure, peer influences. So this, especially students who have formed, great friendships during their 11th and 12th, somewhere there's this fear that what if I am not able to, I should be going along with what my friends are doing. I'll be more in a safer zone. Those many uncertainties, already there's uncertainty about the whole college atmosphere and my career. It'll be safer to have my friends around me who are my support network. So also one of the considerations is what are my friends going to do, and I'm more inclined to take up fields which my friends are choosing. There will be some who will want to go out of the box, and we do see that trend coming in with this new generation. They certainly, it is not like our times where, it was very defined, engineering or medicine. Today students think of many wider options, and which is why we had so many registrations, I feel, today for our webinar, although they've not joined in that many numbers, but we did have a lot of registrations for this webinar. And that's because I think students are now willing to explore, students are willing to take risks in terms of their careers, and they just want to know more and find out what are the various options. But primarily their career choices are guided by what is my employability going to look like, what are going to be my pay packages. Many of the students say, I joined business management because I knew that Symbiosis guarantees good placements, and I'll be assured of a great pay package at the end of the day. Or I choose medicine because I know that it's a service sector, I really like helping people, and there's a glamour quotient, people respect, it's a very respectable job or profession. Some people choose chartered accountancy purely because, again, assured financial security there. They will never run out of jobs. People will always require CAs. So very safe space to enter. But there are various fields like, media communication, journalism, liberal arts, that are equally finding favor with students, because students now see also the international prospects. They're not just confining themselves to India. They do want to see what the future prospects are in terms of global markets, and they do explore such fields. So all these factors do guide decisions that students.
Absolutely, ma'am. And a follow-up question to that, it's a two-part question. Firstly, when students make decisions based on, say, peer pressure or only the pay package, it does have some consequences on them in the long term, right? So one, could you highlight those consequences? And two, what should be the ideal way to make this career choice?
Right. Okay, so very, very important. And this I will share personal experiences, having worked with Symbiosis educational organization for the last 4 years almost. And when clients come to us, especially when they're having this struggle in their first semester, when they are enrolled in a particular undergraduate degree program, and they come to me and they say that they're just not feeling okay. They're finding it very hard to adjust, not just to the environment, but to the curriculum itself. And they find themselves thinking, okay, I came here with a certain expectation, but it does not match up to it. And they find it that, they had certain ideas about it, or they came because their parents asked them to choose that particular field, or they came because Symbiosis is a great name, and I want to take up an admission in Symbiosis because I love the kind of culture that Symbiosis holds. They come in, and then the first semester is like an eye opener for them, where they realize, okay, where am I? What is this? Where am I? Where is this leading to? These subjects are not what I really wanted to do, or was I interested, or I don't think I have the right aptitude for it either. Like I feel that I struggle with these subjects. I find it hard to comprehend. So there are many challenges that students then come up if they've not thought through their career choice and they've entered a particular field. Unfortunately, in India, you don't have that flexibility as of now to kind of shift from one career to another, or to take that drop and enter another field immediately. Unfortunately, the system is such that you are expected to kind of pursue a particular line that you choose, which is why also I feel that boards creates that kind of pressure, because once you've chosen something, you are going to possibly have to stick with it, or then you're taking a huge risk of dropping out and then appearing for an entrance exam, not being assured of a placement there either. So, the risks that are associated with it are, therefore, you can feel quite helpless in a given situation. You can find it very hard to adjust, and thereby your confidence level, your self-esteem can significantly drop, and that can in itself be a sort of a vulnerability for developing mental health issues. So if the students don't talk about these challenges that they're facing with their peers, or with the counselor on campus, or with their faculty, or with their parents, then it tends to bottle up, and it can lead to mental health issues like anxiety or depression in the long run. So my dear students, again, we want to highlight here the fact that why thinking about your career choice is so important is because once you choose a particular field, in India particularly, it is not very easy to navigate pathways once you've chosen a particular field. And to understand that there are consequences which can be detrimental to your own mental health, which is why to sort of make that informed choice is very it would be very helpful if you kind of make that informed choice. So you're aware of the pros and cons of the career choices that you're making, and then you're prepared to kind of deal with the challenges that come by. Having said that, you can never be fully prepared for what comes through when you choose a particular career. There will be some uncertainties, and that's the beauty of life, that life is uncertain, and that it demands a bit of flexibility and adaptability, which is also a core skill that along with studying, I think also emphasizing to students that these soft skills, these life skills, are what are very crucial. How you relate with other people, how you communicate with other people, how much understanding you have of your own self is I think a basic foundation that will help you to adapt in any system, any college, any career that you choose to take up. These are some of the things, underlying things, that will actually help you to cope.
Absolutely. Dr. Kiran, would you like to add any other tips for students to consider whilst making these important decisions?
Well, I think the other thing, the flip side I wanted to point out is, having options in the US, right, where you can go from field to one field to another seamlessly. That too has its own challenges, right? I know of a lot of students who have come from India after finishing their 12th for undergraduate exams here, for undergraduate education here. And the reality is that there is, the system here is equally overwhelming. The students here in the 12th grade are just beyond anxious. The same issues that are well and alive in India, the same issues exist here, because not only are you expected to perform and do well academically, but you're expected to be this brilliant, well-rounded student. So not only do you have to have the marks, you have to make sure that you are you know, also exploring the arts, whether it's visual arts or, you know, some other kind of art or music. Then you're supposed to do a lot of volunteering. Then you're supposed to be a sport. You're supposed to demonstrate leadership. So you're supposed to be excelling in all these areas. And I remember when my son was applying to colleges, it was just constant anxiety. And then, of course, in this country, when it comes to some of these Ivy League schools, you have the, you know, a whole focus on if your parents went there, right? You get preference. So while there are different kinds of preferential treatments, maybe that are in India, there is also preferential treatment here. Maybe you can make a large donation to a college and get admission. Maybe you can just get admission on an athletic capacity. You know, if you're an athlete, you don't need the grades. So there are different kinds of sources of stress and the uncertainty, like Dr. Girija was saying. The reality is just coming back to yourself, right? What is important to you? What makes you excited? How realistic is it? How can you navigate so that you can end up doing what really moves you? How do you create some balance, perhaps, to say, this is what I really want to do, but maybe it's not going to be financially lucrative. So how do I create a balance of doing something that's going to support me financially, and then also help me, you know, feel good about what I'm doing? What kind of an impact do you want to have? So getting a little bit more maybe deeper and thinking through, you know, what kind of a life do I want to lead? And what am I looking for? What are my parents looking for? What is meaningful? And so engaging in that and balancing all of that out, and remembering that doing that with stress and pressure is not going to allow for clear thinking, right? When we get stressed, our prefrontal cortex goes into overdrive, and we are not able to reason in a way that's meaningful. We are not clear in our thinking. We don't become organized, we become disorganized. So making sure that whatever it is that you're planning for yourself, you're doing it in a time and space where you're really allowing your brain to be open to possibilities. And so at the end of the day, you know, just focusing on what is important to you, what are you inherently good at, what is it that, you know, you feel like is going to bring you satisfaction, and navigating spaces, because there's always going to be hurdles, there's always going to be uncertainty, nothing's guaranteed. And you know, life is going to be what it is. And so how do you come back to center and be okay with what you're doing? So just, you know, giving yourself permission and being kind to yourself. In this society right now, we're not very kind to ourselves. The messaging that happens for us, whether it's intentional, unintentional, is filled with doubt and uncertainty and negativity. And so how do we make sure that we're messaging ourselves in a way that makes us feel good? And that's up to us, right? Coming back to what is in my control, what can I do? And then making small incremental steps instead of thinking big picture.
Absolutely. I think those tips have been very, very helpful. And I hope the students and parents here are able to implement some of these techniques that you all have so graciously shared. We've also asked our participants in the registration form to share some of the questions that they wanted us to answer. So because we are running short of time, I'm going to pick two questions. The first one is, how do I prepare for my field? What exactly should I focus on after the 12th? Like if I have an idea of this is the field, what are the next steps that I can do?
Correct. So if you already have a sort of a preference for a particular career, then obviously do research more about to understand what lies in the future with that particular career choice. And always remember to have a plan B. So if plan A does not work out, then you at least have a plan B. Hello?
You're audible, ma'am.
Yeah, always have a plan B in place, plan A, plan B. If you're sure of one particular career, and do research more to find out what are the pros and cons of a particular field, and you know, to talk to people in the industry, people who are already working in that particular career. Do make it a point to talk to different people.
Yeah, I can pick up on what Dr. Girija was saying. Sounds like she's having some technical issues. So yeah, so I think, definitely engaging with people that you admire, you respect, who are maybe in the same field, who have gone down that path, and also talking to people who've not chosen not to go down that path. So you get both perspectives, right? Maybe someone has just was going down a certain path and they shifted, and so it's okay to inquire and to say, what happened, and to go back to asking a lot of questions and not being afraid to ask those questions and reaching out to people. It's okay to reach out to people and get opinions, and also realize when it's time that those opinions are a bit much maybe, and they're impacting how you're feeling about things. So the purpose is to remove confusion and gain clarity, and you can go about gaining clarity in so many ways. Remember that people are always willing to talk about things. And so just remaining in that place of inquiry, asking questions, making sure that you're doing enough research. Right now, you guys have the benefit of information and access to information, right? To see, okay, what are the financial benefits of going into a field like this? What are commitments that I will have to make? Is there travel involved? What else should I be doing and not doing? And so just thinking through what this means for you, and how do you make sure that you have the information so that you can make the choices you need to make.
Absolutely. So taking more of a longitudinal approach towards it instead of just a cross-sectional view, because even fields, they tend to evolve and grow over time. There's so much advancement that happens, and to be able to maybe predict that to an extent and prepare yourself to also be flexible enough to evolve yourself as the field keeps evolving.
Correct. And just because you think you know something, it may not be what is facts on the ground, right? It may not be really what ends up happening. Sometimes you think it, wow, looks so glamorous and this looks amazing. And you end up like, wow, it's more maybe research, maybe just doing, digging and finding out information. So you don't know what the reality is. And so the more questions you ask and the more clarity you gain, the more you can, feel good about the decision you're making.
What they say, right? No question is ever stupid. And finally, the last question that I would like to put out there is, could you share some of the upcoming careers? Because like I said, the world has changed drastically in the past 2 years. There's a lot of new fields that have come to light that have gained importance. So maybe sharing some of these fields with the 12th standard students who are going to be making these choices now.
So yeah, I mean, it seems like these days, you turn around and people are doing all kinds of things, right? And getting all kinds of jobs. And some of the things you've never heard of is, like, wow, I didn't even know this was a possibility. So remaining again in this exploration phase to say, what else is out there? Like, here is something I'm just really good at. Is there anything that I can do that I can just be doing what I really enjoy most of the time? And so I think, the best way to go around just getting a sense of what's out there is, looking for things, putting in information, whether it's online, talking to people, contacting people, doing these cold calls. Again, I can speak from the US perspective. People are very, very willing to help and give you information. And so, that's one thing that we have a huge benefit of. You can approach any professor, any person, and send them an email, and you're likely to get a response. To just even say that, maybe I'm not the right person, here's talk to someone else, but you'll get something. And so asking around and exploring possibilities, that's, some of the new upcoming fields, of course, have to do with data science, maybe. So if you are inclined towards the, analysis, if you have that kind of a mind, going into data sciences, maybe looking at, the combining economy and economics and politics, right? Political economic theories. We have majors here in the US that, like, even happiness apparently is a major. You can major in a happiness. So the sky is the limit, right? And so it's coming back to what is important to you. What would a particular major, or delving into a particular subject, what will that get you? What will it, how will it create meaning in your life? Will it tap into your internal strengths? Maybe there are counselors you can speak to, right? There are professional counselors that you can speak to gain an understanding of what does this career look like. What would you want to do if you were to be in that career? I think the fact that there is access to information and that you can get information from so many different places, it can also be overwhelming. It may leave you feeling even more confused than when you started. So it could be a whole variety of things, and just remaining centered to say, what is it that I want to do? How do I get to do more of what I enjoy, what I've gotten feedback that I'm really good at? And where does it fit? And how can I make it fit? And so, yeah, good. Dr. Girija is here. Maybe she can add to and bring in the perspective of maybe what are some trends, what are some new fields. Dr. Girija, is the question that students, parents can be open to in terms of career choices.
Some of the new and upcoming fields in India, ma'am. Hello, Dr. Girija, can you hear us?
Maybe she can't hear.
Yeah, I think she's having some technical trouble.
Well, I mean, I think what Symbiosis is launching is huge, right? It's a BSc in mental health. Like, nobody's ever heard of that. And so it's one of a kind. It is going to be such that you get prepared to be in this field of mental health, to offer support, to make sure that you can understand what does that look like. What can you do with a BSc in mental health, and how can you maybe gain employment? How can you feel like you are contributing in a meaningful way? And so this is something very bold, very new, and getting more information about that, to say, hey, what does that mean exactly? And to remain open to something that is different sounding, right? To say, is this something that would even be okay for me? And then what would it mean for my family? So we're functioning on so many multiple levels, right? Expectations that we have of ourselves, expectations that society has of us, family has of us. And how does that all come together so that at the end of the day, you are not making yourself vulnerable, like Dr. Girija said earlier, to be at risk for some of these mental health issues where there's no satisfaction, but maybe you're in a great paying job in a good city and you still are not really happy. And so what does that mean then? And how can you switch things up and make yourself feel good about what you're doing? So I think mental health professions are on the rise everywhere because of what we have suffered through with the pandemic. I know that in the US itself, psychiatry as a residency post-medical school was not really, a top choice. And just data has just come out, and for 30 slots in a residency program, 1,600 applicants were, applications were made. So it's becoming highly competitive. I think there is value being gained in these fields that are very non-traditional, that are not stereotypical, and to be open to what's out there, what is new, and is this my cup of tea, sort of a thing, right? And what do I need to do? So Dr. Girija is back. I don't know if she can hear us. Can you hear us, Dr. Girija? Oh, wait, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. The internet today is just not supporting, but I hope I'm audible now.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh. Right. No, I think you've covered all the points very beautifully. I just heard your last point about talking about mental health as a profession. and certainly would want to let our viewers know that yes, fields like psychology and mental health are certainly upcoming, and there's a great demand. I mean, there's a global demand, there's a great opportunity globally as well for mental health professionals, unlike what it was 20 years ago. Because we see that the prevalence of mental health issues has risen so much, and especially the pandemic has brought forth the need for mental health uh, at the forefront, really. And therefore, I would really urge students who are particularly inclined towards taking professions belonging to faculty of humanities and social sciences, or even biological sciences, who are thinking of medicine, but possibly, if you're not able to seek a seat in medicine, then certainly think of mental health as a career because it's highly rewarding. It's a service sector. Uh, you can work in various sectors post graduation. You have ample opportunities for specialization post doing your graduation. And happy to announce that Symbiosis has launched a BSc in mental health, a 3-year full-time undergraduate degree program in mental health from this academic year. Please watch out on our website, our SIHS website, for more information about the program. And through our upcoming webinars, we'll certainly be sharing more information about the profession of mental health itself and what opportunities and career prospects lie with respect to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Girija and Dr. Kiran. This has been a very enlightening webinar, and I hope our viewers found it to be the same. As Dr. Girija mentioned, we will be having the series of webinars. So the next one will particularly be talking about making your career in mental health. So if any of you students, parents, educators would like to join in for the next webinar, we will share the link very shortly. And you can also drop in your contact details in the chat box to one of us, and we will connect with you separately to give you more details about these webinars, as well as the BSc in mental health program, if you would like. So with that, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. It has been a very rewarding Sunday evening and Sunday morning for you, ma'am. So thank you so much, everybody. And we will be reaching out to you shortly with further details for the upcoming webinars. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.